Great, so this is video for Wednesday, December 3rd. I'm going to start with just a simple example, which is this division. Polynomial division is done just like regular division in terms of how you set it up. The dividend, which is the larger expression here, goes inside the division bar, and the divisor, the x plus 9, goes outside. So when we divide, we look at the first terms to start with, and we ask ourselves the question, x times what gives me x squared? Well, that's x. Step 2 is multiplying that answer by the divisor. So x times x is x squared, x times 9 is 9x. The next step is to subtract, just like we would with regular division. The first column basically disappears. X squared take away x squared is nothing. 14x take away 9x is 5x. Now we're going to need to bring down another term because we're dividing with a binomial. So we need at least two terms here, binomial here to divide into. And the process starts again. We began by looking at the first term here and the first term inside here, which at this point is 5x. And we asked ourselves the question, x times what is 5x? Well, that's 5. So we take our 5, we multiply it by our divisor. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 9 is 45. And conveniently with this simple example, when you subtract, everything subtracts to 0. And our answer is simply x plus 5. Now I'm going to skip ahead to example number 3. Where we have a little bit more complicated looking example. Our divisor, again, we simply write next to the division bar. We create our division bar, but this time we have to make sure to put these terms in order, descending from the highest power. So we'll start with 2x to the 4th, and then 3x to the 3rd, and then, well, we don't have an x squared term. But it turns out we actually need something here. So in order just to take up the space for x squared, we're going to write in 0x squared. The rest of the terms we have an x term and we have a constant term, so I'll write the minus 7x and the minus 10. Now, as we divide, we do it just like I did with example number 1. X squared times what is 2x to the 4th? Well, that's 2x squared. We take our answer and we multiply it through the divisor. So 2x squared times 2x is 2x to the 4th. 2x squared times negative 2x is negative 4x to the 3rd. Now when we subtract, the first column cancels. However, the second column, be careful, we're taking 3x to the 3rd minus a negative 4x to the 3rd, which is basically the same as like adding a positive 4, which gives us 7x to the 3rd. We bring down our 0x squared, and we start again. X squared times what gives us 7x to the 3rd? Well, that's 7x. So we take our answer, 7x, and we multiply it through here. So 7x times x squared is 7x to the 3rd. 7x times negative 2x is negative 14x squared. And remember, when we subtract, the first column cancels, but the second column, we're subtracting a negative 14 from 0, which is like adding 14. So we get 14x squared. Bringing down the negative 7x, we do the process again. X squared times what is 14x squared? Well, 14. 14 times x squared is 14x squared. 14 times negative 2 is negative 28x. Now, first column cancels, second column is negative 7 minusing a negative 28, so that's actually like adding 28, which gives us positive 21x. Now, here's the problem. We can't divide x squared into 21x. This is smaller than this, so it doesn't work. So what we do is we simply call this part of our remainder. The remainder becomes a fractional term, which is the last term in our polynomial. We write this, whatever it happens to be, on the top. It could be one term, it could be two terms like this one. And we divide it by the divisor, which in this case is x squared minus 2x. Now the last page is showing you something called synthetic division. Synthetic division is just like regular division. Because we get the right answers, it's just, it looks different on the page. The first step is if we set this equal to 0, we would get -2 when we solved. So these two are different. If this is x plus 2 as a factor, our solution would be -2. So it's those solution values that we're actually going to use and not the plus 2, which is part of the factor. Now, we set up a little different type of array here. I'm making a little bit of a box. And I'm going to take a look at this number I'm dividing into. So it's x cubed. Again, I don't have an x squared term, so I would write plus 0x squared. We need those placeholders in this process as well. And then it would be -7x minus 6. So we use these values to fill in down here. So 1 comes first, then 0, then -7, then -6. So this is how you do synthetic division. We're dividing this into this, but we're doing it just with some numbers. You begin by copying the number 1 down here, and then you multiply -2 times 1 is -2. Add 0 plus -2 is -2. Multiply -2 times -2, which is 4. Add -7 plus 4, which is -3. And multiply -2 times -3, which is 6. Adding gives you 0. Now, this is part of our answer. It's just the numerical part of our answer. It is the constants and the whole numbers, coefficients. So what is this answer? Well, basically what we just did is we divided x into an x to the third, which should give us an x squared, right? X goes into x to the third, x squared times. So we know that this first power has to be x squared. So that would be 1x squared. The next power down from that would be x, so it's -2x. And the next power down from that would just be the regular number. So that's our answer for number 4. Now it turns out that synthetic division has another really cool aspect, and that is with substitution. If I want to substitute -4 into this polynomial and see what y value I would get, I could take this -4 and cube it and multiply it by 3 and square it, multiply it by 4 and multiply it by -5 and then add all that stuff up and get an answer. Or I can do it using synthetic division. If you take -4, which is just the same number that they give you to start with, and you set up your array in the same way, again, this time I'm not missing any terms, so I can just use them as they're given to me. They're already in descending order. Bring down the 3 to start. Copy this down, and here we go. Multiply here gives you -12. Add gives you -8. Multiply gives you +32. Add gives you 27. Multiply gives you -108. And add gives you -105. And it turns out that is our answer. -105.